Do you really believe it's possible for your life to be completely transformed from ruin to triumph in the blink of an eye? Our story today challenges everything you think you know about adversity and faith. Imagine losing everything you own, being abandoned by everyone, and still being challenged to maintain your integrity. But what if I told you that against all odds, someone not only survived this trial by fire, but also had their life doubled in blessings, wealth, and honor? Sounds impossible, right? But this controversial and inspiring story isn't just a tale of perseverance. It's a reminder that sometimes the greatest rewards come when we least expect them. Stay with us to find out how someone went from total despair to abundance in a chapter that goes beyond human understanding. Are you ready to have your mind completely blown? Don't miss this incredible journey of redemption and power that defies logic. The answer will surprise you. Ever stop to think about how quickly life can turn upside down? I've experienced it firsthand. My name is Job, and I'm here to tell you what happened to me. Imagine being considered the most prosperous man in the East. In the land of Uz, I had it all. A flock of 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a large number of servants to manage this fortune. Moreover, my home was blessed with 10 children, 7 sons and 3 daughters. I was a man who deeply respected God and shunned evil. Always concerned about the spiritual well-being of my children, I would rise at dawn to offer sacrifices, thinking that perhaps they had sinned and cursed God in their hearts. But on a day that seemed like any other, while they were feasting, my life changed dramatically. A messenger appeared, bringing devastating news. Thieves had attacked, taking the animals and killing the servants. Hardly had he finished speaking when another arrived, saying that a divine fire had incinerated my flock and more workers. The series of calamities continued, with more messengers bringing news of attacks and finally the death of my children, caused by a whirlwind that destroyed the house where they were gathered. The pain was so intense that in mourning I tore my robe and shaved my head, falling to the ground amidst the ashes, seeking some form of relief from my anguish. Even my wife, in the face of such despair, suggested that I denounce my faith. But even in this abyss of pain, I refused to turn my back on what I always believed. I told her, reaffirming my faith, that we should accept both the blessings and the adversities that come from God, without ever attributing evil to Him. This story, more than an account of losses and trials, is a testimony of unwavering faith and integrity in the face of the unimaginable. It was a difficult journey, but even in the depths of despair, I chose to keep my heart aligned with good, refusing to give in to despair or rebellion. When the news of my misfortune spread, my friends Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar set aside their own lives and came to me, united in their intent to offer comfort. They, who were older than I, could barely recognize me from afar. Such was my state of desolation. They gave themselves over to mourning for me, crying, tearing their clothes, and covering themselves with dust in an ancient gesture of grief and solidarity. They sat with me in silence, in companionship that lasted an entire week, without a word being spoken, because the magnitude of my pain was evident and profound. In this shared silence, the anguish within me overflowed, and I cursed the day of my birth, wishing it to be blotted from time, that darkness would swallow it, and that God would ignore it, leaving it devoid of any light. I wondered, with a soul-tearing pain, why life is given to those who suffer deeply, to those who long for death as a treasure and cannot find it, to those whose paths are clouded by misfortune and surrounded by endless sadness. My existence became a sequence of sighs, without peace, without rest, only chaos and despair. What I feared most had become reality, and all that concerned me had manifested. I was without peace, without calm, living in endless turmoil. My spirit was shattered, my days shortened by the expectation of death, and I was surrounded by mockers and hostile stares. Amidst this torment, I cried out for assurance from God, asking who else could stand for me in this state of total abandonment. My eyes were clouded with sadness, and I was reduced to a shadow of what I once was. This phase of my life is a bitter reflection on human fragility, the inevitability of suffering, and the search for meaning amidst chaos. But even in the deepest darkness, I sought answers, cried out for understanding, and longed for some glimpse of light, even though everything around me suggested it might never come. Imagine being surrounded by friends who came to offer comfort in a moment of immense pain, but instead, they surrounded you with words that felt more like accusations. This is how I felt when Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar sat with me in the midst of my desolation. From afar, they could barely recognize me, and as they approached, their expressions of mourning turned into speeches that left me even more desolate. For 7 days and 7 nights we were there, immersed in a silence that spoke volumes. When I finally opened my heart, it was not to express hope, but to question the very essence of existence, the pain and injustice of life. Why be born to suffer? I asked, casting into the universe my deepest doubts about life and the fate of those who suffer without understanding. My friends, though well-intentioned, saw my affliction as the consequence of unseen faults, unconfessed sins, as if all pain were a divine punishment for unadmitted errors. Eliphaz, the eldest, suggested that I seek divine favor, as if I had not already strived to live righteously. Bildad pondered that perhaps my children had brought their own ruin, a thought that tore even more at my heart, and Zophar, without hesitation, questioned my integrity, suggesting that my suffering was a clear sign of my guilt. They spoke of divine justice as if it was simple and straightforward, ignoring the complexity of human suffering. They believed the solution was simple: confess and forsake the sin they presumed to exist. But how to respond to accusations when you know your life has been lived in fear and respect of God? I was taken by deep exhaustion, tired of justifying my innocence, of defending my integrity against friends who seemed more accusers than allies. In the midst of this storm of words and accusations, my soul cried out for a direct dialogue with the Creator, not to challenge His will, but to understand the purpose of so many trials. "I wish to speak with the Almighty," I exclaimed, longing for answers that only He could provide. My friends, armed with their theories, did not understand that my search was for understanding, not justification. In this exchange of words and feelings, it became clear that human wisdom has its limits, and that in the end, we are all pilgrims in search of meaning, trying to comprehend the incomprehensible. The irony was palpable. I, considered righteous and blameless, became a subject of mockery, a living example of the unpredictability of life and the complexity of human suffering. In this twist of my saga, as I sank into a sea of despondency, my 3 companions, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, approached with the intention of bringing relief to my troubled heart. They dropped everything to stand by my side, in a display of solidarity few would have the disposition to offer. They could barely recognize me from a distance, such was my misfortune. Their reactions were immediate: tears, torn garments, and ashes upon their heads, as if they shared in my deep pain. And there they stayed, in sepulchral silence, for 7 long days and nights, without a word being spoken, for my anguish was too great to be expressed in words. However, when I finally decided to open my heart, it was not words of consolation or hope that echoed in the air, but a curse upon the day of my birth. Profound questions about the meaning of life and human suffering sprang from my lips, casting shadows over existence and divine design. My soul was filled with despair, and each passing day seemed only to confirm my worst fears. When my friends finally spoke, their words came laden with veiled accusations and theories about divine justice that seemed more like knives deepening my wounds. They were convinced that my adversities were the direct result of hidden flaws and sins. Their attempts at consolation quickly turned into judgments, suggesting that the key to ending my suffering would be the acknowledgement of mistakes I had not committed. Indignant at their insinuations and misunderstandings, I confronted them. My words, laden with pain and firmness, sought to reaffirm my innocence and challenge their narrow views on divine justice. Amid a whirlwind of emotions, I told them that their presence and advice proved as empty as the consolation they intended to offer. Despite the immensity of my affliction, I maintained my faith, declaring that even if God Himself should take me to death, I would continue to hope in Him and defend my integrity to the end. Prepared to face the Creator, I was willing to question Him, demand answers, understand the reasons for my misfortune. Why me, a man who lived righteously, suffered so much while others, clearly in debt to morality and justice, prospered? It was an enigma that consumed me, a thirst for justice that propelled me to seek a spiritual confrontation, not out of challenge, but in search of understanding. This journey of pain, confrontation, and profound introspection reveals not just the complexity of the human condition in the face of suffering, but also the tireless search for meaning even in the depths of despair. It is a story that resonates with the eternal restlessness of the being before the mystery of existence, destiny, and unwavering faith amidst the storm. In the face of my friend's persistent misunderstanding, I vehemently reaffirmed my innocence and righteousness, swearing never to stray from the truth despite the bitterness life had presented to me. I was determined to maintain my integrity, no matter how arduous the trial or deep the suffering. The promise to remain faithful to my principles was more than a mere challenge. It was an unwavering commitment to myself and my conscience, refusing to allow it to be tarnished by injustice. Adversity had struck me in every conceivable way, marking every aspect of my existence. Physically, I was in ruins, my body ravaged by wounds and diseases, a constant reminder of my misery. Socially, I had become a ghost in my own community, shunned by those who once greeted me with respect and consideration. Mentally, the uncertainty and confusion about the reason for such desolation haunted me incessantly, leaving me with an even deeper sense of isolation. However, it was the spiritual pain that consumed me the most, the feeling of being separated from God, as if there was an insurmountable abyss between us. This pain transcended any physical or emotional suffering, for it touched the essence of my faith and existence. The conviction that God had distanced Himself, leaving me adrift in a sea of despair, was the hardest to bear. When I finally received the divine response I had so sought, it came in a way I could never have predicted. God spoke, not with the words of comfort I expected, but with questions that challenged the very foundation of my understanding. "Who is this that questions my wisdom with such ignorant words?" He inquired, reminding me of the vastness of His creation and my insignificant role before it. The divine questions enveloped me, one after another, like waves breaking upon the sand, each highlighting my ignorance of the mysteries of the universe. The Lord confronted me with the greatness of His work, from the foundations of the earth to the laws that govern the cosmos, each question serving to remind me of my smallness and the presumption of questioning His designs. It was a transformative dialogue, where the voice of the Almighty not only challenged me, but also expanded my perception. forcing me to acknowledge that, in the face of God's magnitude, my human complaints and restlessness were infinitesimal. This divine conversation, instead of providing direct answers to my afflictions, offered me a new perspective on my existence and suffering. I learned that true wisdom lies in the humility of recognizing our limitations before the infinite, and that even in moments of greatest despair, we are never truly alone. The Creator, in His immeasurable wisdom, governs the universe with order and purpose, and even if we do not always understand His ways, we are constantly invited to trust in His justice and love. My journey thus far has been a true whirlwind of emotions, trials, and above all, a profound learning process. Faced with unprecedented adversity, I remained steadfast in my convictions, refusing to yield to the unfounded accusations of my friends. With every word I uttered in my defense, I was determined not to let my integrity be questioned, to not allow my adversities to define me. I knew deep down that my pain was not a reflection of hidden flaws or unconfessed sins. My conscience was clear, and I was resolved to maintain my innocence to the last breath. In the twists and turns of my saga, as I found myself sinking into a sea of dismay, my three companions, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar, approached with the intention of bringing relief to my troubled heart. They dropped everything to stand by my side. In a show of solidarity few would have the willingness to offer. They could barely recognize me from a distance, such was my misfortune. Their reactions were immediate: tears, torn clothes, and ashes on their heads, as if sharing in my deep pain. And there they stayed in sepulchral silence for 7 long days and nights, without a word being spoken, for my anguish was too great to be expressed in words. However, when I finally decided to open my heart, it wasn't words of comfort or hope that echoed in the air, but a curse upon the day of my birth. Deep questions about the meaning of life and human suffering sprang from my lips, casting shadows over existence and divine design. My soul was filled with despair, and each passing day seemed only to confirm my worst fears. When my friends finally spoke, their words were laden with veiled accusations and theories about divine justice that felt more like knives deepening my wounds. They were convinced that my adversities were the direct result of hidden faults and sins. Their attempts at consolation quickly turned into judgments, suggesting that the key to ending my suffering would be the acknowledgement of errors I hadn't committed. Indignant at their insinuations and misunderstandings, I confronted them. My words, laden with pain and firmness, sought to reaffirm my innocence and challenge their narrow views on divine justice. Amidst a whirlwind of emotions, I told them that their presence and advice proved as empty as the consolation they intended to offer. Despite the immensity of my affliction, I maintained my faith, declaring that even if God were to lead me to death, I would continue to hope in Him and defend my integrity to the end. Prepared to face the Creator, I was willing to question Him, demand answers, understand the reasons for my misfortune. Why I, a man living in righteousness, suffered so much, while others, clearly in debt to morality and justice, prospered. It was a puzzle that consumed me, a thirst for justice that impelled me to seek a spiritual confrontation, not out of challenge, but in search of understanding. This journey of pain, confrontation, and profound introspection reveals not just the complexity of the human condition in the face of suffering, but also the tireless search for meaning even in the depths of hopelessness. It is a story that resonates with the eternal restlessness of being before the mystery of existence, destiny, and unwavering faith amidst the storm. At the heart of this divine correction lies the truth that my friends, though motivated by concern and love, fail to understand and convey the true nature of God and His works. By reprimanding them and instructing them to offer sacrifices, God not only affirmed his sovereignty, but also reiterated the value of true wisdom and humility before the mystery of his will. My response to these divine instructions was one of obedience and faith. By praying for my friends, I placed myself once again before God, acknowledging his greatness and my own insignificance. And it was in this act of submission and intercession that I experienced a miraculous turnaround in my life. God not only healed me, but also restored my fortunes in a spectacular manner, doubling everything I had lost. The community, which once might have avoided me or looked upon me with pity, now gathered around me, offering comfort, solidarity, and material gifts as symbols of their renewed support and respect. This gathering was not just a celebration of my physical and material restoration, but a recognition of the spiritual journey I had undergone, a testament to the redeeming power of God that transcends human understanding. My life, in its final phase, was marked by countless blessings. Twice the possessions, a fresh start for my family, and the continuation of my lineage were tangible signs of God's mercy and favor. More than the material goods restored, it was the profound renewal of my faith and understanding of God that became the true treasure of this experience. I had indeed been reclaimed by God, not just as his servant, but as a living testimony of his justice, compassion, and sovereignty over all things. This story, my story, serves as a beacon of hope and a reminder that even in the depths of despair, faithfulness to God and trust in his promises can lead to a restoration beyond imagination. It's a testament to the unwavering love of God, a proof that no matter the trials we face, the last word will always be one of blessing, redemption, and renewal for those who persevere in faith. You've just witnessed an epic journey of losses, struggles, and a miraculous turnaround that defies logic. But believe it or not, the story of Job is more than an ancient account. It's an inexhaustible source of inspiration for facing our own challenges. What you've just seen is a glimpse of the power of faith, human resilience, and the promise that no matter how low we may fall, there's always a path back to the light. We want this message to resonate not just with you, but also with those around you. If this story touched you, imagine the impact it can have on others. Therefore, we ask you not to keep this inspiration to yourself. Follow our channel, like, comment, and share this video. Together, we can spread a wave of hope and transformation. Stay with us, for there are many more stories waiting to be uncovered. Your journey with us is just beginning. Let's light up the world, one story at a time.